Are port machines good or bad? We're going to be talking about all that and more today, but first, coffee. Today's coffee. In fact, I forgot to go and buy coffee from a nice place with sort of fresh stuff. So today's coffee is actually from a cafe called Komeda Coffee. Now, I actually didn't realize that you can buy beans from this coffee shop. I go there sometimes just to drink coffee, but apparently you can actually buy beans. This one has Colombia and Brazil as part of their blend. So I'm gonna open it. Wow, whoa. Oh, that's interesting. Not sure how clearly you can see the color differences, but there you can see that some of these beans are brighter than others, so I'm guessing that that's the, maybe they were roasted differently, or just the different varieties are lighter and darker, but isn't that really interesting? Well, I found it interesting. So I'm gonna get the grinder out and put these beans in, but what I really want to talk about today is Nintendo Switch, and is it going to go the way of the Vita? Because in a previous video, I said, is it just a glorified port machine? And I was talking about the Nintendo Switch. And that was actually before? Was that before the Monster Hunter World announcement? I'm not sure if it was or it wasn't. But in any case, Monster Hunter World, a brand new Monster Hunter game, which is apparently a mainline series game. So not Monster Hunter Generations. We're going Monster Hunter 4 and Monster Hunter 5. Monster Hunter World is Monster Hunter 5. And that is the really important thing that we need to talk about today, because if Nintendo Switch is not getting Monster Hunter World, and I've not heard anything about it getting Monster Hunter World, it means that all that Nintendo is getting is a lesser version, not the mainline game, where the previous ones, Monster Hunter 3, and Monster Hunter 3 was a port as well, but Monster Hunter 4, 4 Ultimate, those were mainline games. And anyway, hold on, before I lose focus, let's grind! So, I'm really worried because when I started to think about the fact that Nintendo is getting a lot of ports, at first I was really happy, and I read a lot of the comments on previous videos, and a lot of you guys are apparently very happy that the Switch is getting a lot of ports as well. The only problem is that other machines which have become port machines, like the PS Vita, didn't work out so well. And when I say didn't work out so well, I mean didn't get a lot of new games. It ended up getting nothing but ports. And the types of ports that we got on the PS Vita are not ports of every game coming out on the PS4, although we did get some of them. After they realized that porting from PS4 to Vita and having them released on both platforms at the same time, people would just buy the PS4 version. Why? Because one, you can stream them and YouTube them, and they'd be in HD quality, much better than using the, I don't know what the resolution on this was, but it wasn't HD. Even if you had a capture card, which was risky and expensive, it was better to just buy the PS4 version because you can stream them, but also it's higher quality, and people play on the go, but they weren't playing so much on the go that it warranted buying the lower res version. It was like, I play mostly at home and sometimes on the go. People weren't buying the PS Vita version, they were going for the home console version. Okay. Eventually, if people were only buying the PS4 version, it wasn't really worth developers' time making the PS Vita version. And what ended up happening was we still got ports on the Vita, but instead the only ports we got were ports of visual novels that came out either a decade ago or 5 years ago or whatever. Visual novels are on games consoles, and sometimes you can have some choices in them, but for the majority of these visual novel games, there's very little gameplay involved. The game systems are mostly read a story. So it really does sit in a space in between stories like novels and games. It's right there in the middle because it does have some sort of game system, but essentially there's very little you can do outside of reading the story. That doesn't mean I don't like them. I love visual novels as much as the next person. It's just that when there are only visual novels on the console, it's not going to be seen as a games machine. Even iPhones are seen as games machines. Even people who are hardcore gamers, I think they still admit that there are games on the iPhone. They may not be games that we all want to play, but there are games. They have game systems. So I'm going to put the filter on top of my coffee jug here. This is the filter I'm using. These ones are called Bach coffee filters. Nothing to do with Johann Sebastian. Alright, so some of the opinions that I saw on the comments for this channel about the Nintendo Switch being a port machine and that being a good thing, I 100% agree. There were a lot of games that people didn't get to play on the Nintendo Wii U because people were too busy playing, because people didn't buy the Wii U. What am I trying to say? Sorry. There were a lot of games that people couldn't play on the Wii U just because they didn't own the console. But now that we've got the Switch, and because the Switch is hopefully going to sell better than the Wii U, still don't know, but it's off to a very good start, we're hoping that having ports on the Switch means that people are going to enjoy a lot of the games that they never even played on the Wii U. Even games like Splatoon. You may think that everyone who wanted to play Splatoon bought a Wii U, but I know a lot of people who were interested in Splatoon but didn't play it just because they said to me, I just didn't have a Wii U. That's the only reason I didn't play it. Even things like Smash Brothers, Splatoon, these mainline games, these are the ones that people buy consoles for, because usually, when you think about it, there's one game that you want, and that's the reason that you buy a certain console. And with the Switch, hopefully it's, people have got enough of those mainline titles to jump in and buy a console just for that one game. And then having all the other games are kind of bonuses, and that's what keeps the console alive. As long as there are more than that one game that you wanted, that's what will make it a console that you love and continue to love, as opposed to just being a one-off Christmas gift, which is what, I don't know. I know that the Nintendo Wii sold really well, but I would say that I bet a lot of people didn't continue to play their Wii, because I had a Wii. Our family bought it for Christmas, and that was it. We were part of that big mass of people who bought the Wii just because, it is fun, but we didn't actually want a lot of the other stuff on there. It was just like, Wii Sports, oh, that's a great game, because even if you don't like games, the whole family can enjoy it. So I agree. The Switch having a lot of ports is good, but the problem is, if we only get ports, you may end up going the way of the Vita. And let me just give you a few examples. With the Vita, we had games like Akiba's Trip, Killzone, Borderlands 2 especially, right? Like, when the reviews came out, they massively hated. I mean, I think it's fair to say that most reviewers did not take kindly to the fact that the frame rate was so low on Borderlands 2 on the Vita. It just made no sense to play it on the Vita when it was really below par. And I own Borderlands 2 as well, and it was below par compared to the other versions. There was a PC version, there was a PS3 version, I think the PS4 version was coming out soon at the time, plus the pre-sequel was only going to be on PS4, there was no such thing on the Vita. So many reasons to play it. So I'm just trying to find out how much I've poured in here. I can't even see the numbers on my thing. Oh yeah, this is about enough, I think. Hold on a second, let's just pour this coffee in here. Oh yeah. Let's taste this Komeda coffee. Got it in my NihongoGamer mug today. Smells good. Tastes exactly like the coffee shop. That's hilarious. It's not an incredibly impressive blend. It's not something that I think, even if you gave it to your friends, I don't know if they would notice that you had made a coffee that you had bought somewhere. It just tastes like coffee. Better than instant coffee. I hesitate to use words like good, bad, better, worse, but it does have something extra, like a flavor, as opposed to just being coffee. When I drink instant coffee, it's like it fulfills its task of being coffee. This is also a very workman-like coffee, but it does have something a little bit extra to it. Maybe it's because it's got a couple different types of bean in it. Things like the Street Fighter series as well, especially as I'm really into beat-em-ups right now. I really felt that, Street Fighter 4 came out, and we got the port on the 3DS, but of course I don't think that many people played it. I actually bought Street Fighter 4 on the 3DS, I think, but then I gave it to my brother because he wanted to play it. But the point is, it wasn't really the same as the PS3 version. With the PS Vita, we didn't get Street Fighter 4 at all. We got Street Fighter versus Tekken for this, and it's not Street Fighter 4. It's a fun game. I think it's quite an enjoyable game, but I feel like it's not as in-depth, or it's not as serious as Street Fighter 4. It's got a bunch of elements which are just detracting from the fighting game experience, like distractions, like the whole gem system, which I was like, we don't need this. It's not it's not making the game better, it's just making the game more complicated. But we're not going to talk about video game design today. The point is, we got Street Fighter vs Tekken, we didn't get Street Fighter 4. Street Fighter 5 came out, what, a year ago, and we still haven't got it on any portable systems, and I would be surprised if we got it on Switch. I don't think we're going to. So with the Switch being a mainline console, like a main console which is still lower powered than most mainline consoles because it has that portable ability, it is perfect for lesser versions of games. So we're gonna get the lesser version of Skyrim, even though it's like the definitive collection or whatever they're gonna call it. It's still in a lower res in portable mode, and it's still going to be, it's coming out later than all the other versions. It won't have any mods or anything, as far as I know. So we got this lesser version of Skyrim. We actually got a better version of all the Nintendo games. Mario Kart Deluxe is one of those cases where the game actually got better for the portable version, which is nice, but for the most part, I think it's not going to be like that. We did get Street Fighter vs Tekken, and on the Switch, it's a similar story. Like we're not getting Street Fighter 4 or 5 or King of Fighters or Guilty Gear or Blaze Blue or any of these massive fighting games. We got Street Fighter 2, which is like 25 years old. I don't want to play Street Fighter 2 anymore. Like, it's fun. It's kind of a nostalgia hit, and it's a good game. It's a good game, don't get me wrong, it's a good game. I'm just not interested in playing Street Fighter 2 anymore. I want to play the games that I can go to the arcades and play against people. Actually, come to think of it, you can still go to the arcades and play Street Fighter 2 against people in Japan, but that's besides the point. The point is, I want all these fighting games, and all I've got is the old, lesser versions. So, bringing it back to King of Fighters, like King of Fighters 14 is the mainline game, and they keep improving the graphics and doing updates, and it's doing really well on the fighting game circuit. I think people are taking it very seriously as a game that you can compete in tournaments with. But what have we got on the Switch? We've got 94, 95, did we have 96? I don't know, we got 98, we got Garo, Mark of the Wolves, a lot of the old games, so it's classic, it's great for people who have the nostalgia. But where are the mainline games? I would like to see King of Fighters 14, I'd like to see Street Fighter 5, I would like to see the latest version of Blaze Blue, I'd like to see Guilty Gear Rev 2, I want to see, I mean, I'm only talking about these titles right now because I'm really into fighting games right now, but for all the other games, like, there are massive titles that we want. I think that while ports are fun for those of us who didn't play the originals, or for those of us who love the originals so much now we want a portable version, but we are not as big a market as we would like to be. For a console to succeed the way that Vita didn't, I think you have to sell to a huge number of people, and I'm talking like 40 million people, and right now in Japan we're almost coming up to the 1 million mark on the Nintendo Switch, but it's gonna have to do even better than that. A lot of consoles do really, really well in their first year, and a lot of consoles also do have nothing but ports for their first year. But I don't see Nintendo speeding up development. I mean, we saw E3, and they talked about, well, okay, there's a Metroid game coming, and they've got this new Yoshi game coming, but we didn't hear anything about Smash Brothers. We had a very small kind of tidbit about the Pokemon title that might be coming. That could be big. That could be big. But that doesn't mean there's going to be a lot of titles. It's just going to be some big titles. We're going to have Pokemon, Smash Brothers. Let's hope we don't get another Star Fox. Anyway, that's besides the point. Another reason why I think having a lot of ports on the Switch is not really a great thing is because if it's viewed as the ports machine, the ports portably, to play ports portably machine, like where is that market? Because I think right now there's a market for people who are turning their consoles into high-powered PCs. That's why we've got PS4, PS4 Pro. That's why we have Xbox One, Xbox One X, we have the powerful version, so home consoles getting more and more powerful, and even mobile phones getting more and more powerful. These are the two main markets, and I don't think that releasing Switch, which is right there in the middle, it's like for people with nostalgia that want to play their favorite games again, but portably, plus some titles once every couple months from Nintendo, and I don't know if I'm just really worried that Switch is not going to succeed. And I think a lot of people like to look at the numbers and go, wow, Switch is doing really, really, really well. But I thought the same thing with Dreamcast, which I bought and I supported until the day it died. Like, I was a huge Dreamcast supporter, as you can probably imagine. I still play my Vita, massive supporter of the Vita, but I know full well that it was not a commercial success, and that really I'm enjoying it just because I like to play a lot of my favorite games portably. I like the idea that Geometry Wars 3 came out and on a portable version with twin analog sticks. That's really exciting for me, but I am not the majority. And unless people who have nostalgia and want to play those nostalgic games portably, or just the games that are coming out currently, they don't mind playing a lesser version on their portable console, unless those people massively increase in number suddenly, like really, really suddenly, I don't see how Switch is going to succeed right now. I don't think it's gonna be as big a failure as the Vita. It's unfair to call the Vita a failure, but when its own company, when Sony jumps ship on it so officially, so quickly, and with so little respect for their own console, it really upsets me the way that Sony treated the Vita. It was just ruthless. It was like, hey, everyone support the Vita, and then when it was kind of dying, they kind of gave us a few inklings that it might continue to survive. They gave us Freedom Wars. They're like, we're gonna reboot the whole thing, it's gonna be really successful. And then after that one final push, they're like, you know what, we give up. Completely give up. Completely, it's over. We give up. It was heartbreaking. With Dreamcast, with Sega, it was just like, Dreamcast, we gave it a really good shot, but PS2's out now, so it's better, and we're just gonna make games now instead of making a console. I was like, but the Dreamcast was so good. Dreamcast was like arcade machine in your house. It was unbelievable. For those of you who didn't own a Dreamcast in that first year when it was really successful, it's very difficult to express how amazing that machine was. It's really hard. People get really emotional about the Dreamcast, and it's really difficult to express why, but it's one of those you had to have been there types of console. So the title that's really piquing my interest right now with the Switch is how Monster Hunter World has not been announced for the Switch, which means that the version we're getting on Switch is the old Monster Hunter. The new Monster Hunter is going to have much heightened AI. There's going to be a lot more emphasis on tracking down monsters, hunting them, and really feeling that life from the creature, whereas before it was like boss battles which were well programmed to be difficult. And that's going to go the way of the dingo, unfortunately. I don't know if dingoes are still a thing, but the point is, it's going away because Monster Hunter Generations and Double Cross, which is going to come out for Switch, so we are getting a Monster Hunter title. It's not the mainline title. Just to compare, on the PS Vita, that we were also complaining, oh, you won't give us Monster Hunter, you won't give us Monster Hunter, and then they're like, finally, Monster Hunter's here! It's Monster Hunter Frontier, it's online only, ha ha! Joke's on you! So that was really upsetting. The only versions we had were emulations of old titles, again, not the main market, and an internet-only version. And let's face it, the internet wasn't fast enough at the time, and no one had internet versions of the Vita. Ugh, I could go on forever, basically, but the point is, yes, having ports on Switch is nice, but that could actually be a bad thing, and potentially, like we saw with the Vita, being known as the ports machine, or rather, the machine with the lesser versions of all the titles you like. Like, you want Monster Hunter, but we've only got Double Cross. You want to play the one with the cool AI that's really fun to track down the monsters in a very realistic way? That'll be only on the PS4, Xbox, and PC. Now that the gap is coming closer and closer together, where consoles were here and PCs were here, but they're coming so much closer together that little space where the Switch is in the middle, it's getting more and more narrow. It's a novel product, but I've seen one Switch on the train in 3 months, April, May, June. So in 3.5 months that I've had the Switch, I've only seen one of these things. I've only seen one person in Japan playing a Switch on the train. It's just too big. I will finish with a positive note though. I think that Nintendo, if they want the Switch to succeed, they will need to create a new version of the Switch. And I've seen some rumors about a Switch Mini. Like, I don't know if it's true, but whether or not it's true, it has to exist eventually, because if it doesn't, I think Switch is going to have a very difficult time to survive. I think as they're seeing in Japan, I think they calculated it was like less than 10% of people who own a Switch have ever taken it outside of the house, which is a telling number. Basically, people don't even bring their iPads around anymore in Japan. Like, everyone has a phone, which is so good, with such a high-res screen, that you don't need a big screen to read ebooks anymore, because you can read books on your phone with your high-density screens, with your high pixel densities. And it's enough. It's good enough to read, and you can also read your books and play games one-handed. Tokyo is a really important part of the whole gaming culture, and if you can't live in a city and play your games console one-handed in Japan, that games console or phone or device is not going to survive, unfortunately. I see fewer and fewer and fewer of these Nintendo 3DSs, and as you've seen in the sales numbers, even the new Nintendo 3DS, the sales numbers have been shrinking. Maybe it's because the 2DS is coming out, maybe it's because the Switch came out, but I would say it's probably because phones are taking over. I don't know many people who still play console games even. Console games or portable games. A lot of people are really, really into mobile games. And I don't think that's because they're fun. Like, this is a massive discussion for a different time. Right now, a lot of people are playing games because they're hooked. They don't even know why they're playing them. As far as I'm aware, it's because they don't have a lot of time and they don't want to be doing nothing on the train, so they may as well be playing a game. That's where gamers are. It's like we took people who make time for games and they've become people who just play games if they have time. I know it's really gone off topic, but if the Switch becomes a ports machine, known for having the lesser versions of all your favorite titles, then I have a very strong feeling that it will go the way of the PS Vita, because it had a lot of fans. Vita had a lot of fans, but that's just having like really good, strong, passionate fans. That's not what keeps a console alive. And I think the people who like the Switch, they're a passionate bunch. But we're not gonna keep this thing alive. This thing has to appeal to a much larger audience if it is to survive. I don't know. I think it's unlikely that we're gonna get a one-handed version of the Switch, but if it were just smaller, like it would be easier to, like I've talked about this in previous videos, like I don't like the angle that you have to hold your arms out like this. Like I would prefer to have it a little bit closer in. Millions of discussions for other times. I hope you've enjoyed this sort of random chat about the Nintendo Switch. I'm really keen to know what you guys think. Is the Nintendo Switch more than a ports machine? And even if it is just a ports machine, or whether we've got a lot of ports, is that a bad thing? Maybe that's a good thing. I think it's good for the fans, but unfortunately I don't think it's a great thing for the console on the whole. If you want this thing to survive, it's gonna need more than ports. Also, let me know what you guys think about Monster Hunter World not coming out on the Switch. As much as I'm very happy for Double Cross coming out on the Switch, I'm feeling that it may be like the last Monster Hunter on the Switch. Is like, this was their farewell. Like, okay, we gave you a port of the old game, but Monster Hunter has moved now. It's moved, and that's what happened with the PSP. Monster Hunter moved and it never came back. Like, oh yeah, we gave you Frontier, but it's not really Monster Hunter. Okay, let me know what you guys think. Are ports good or bad for the Switch? Do you think having a lot of ports will help it succeed, or do you think having a lot of ports will be what makes people think of the Switch as the machine for lesser versions of games? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you in the next NihongoGamer video.